All right, here we have the chase. This is one of those episodes where your first inclination might be to be like, oh, this is one of those backstory heavy things that, it's backstory that's, ancient history and plot stuff that I don't really have as an active thing to do. And you're right, that's the core aspect of it. However, while that's the meat of the episode, the way it's prepared is such an elaborate thing that you could swap that out for something else and have an interesting episode anyways. So let's take a look at that. The basic gist of this is that Picard has this old professor who was the guy who taught him archaeology, blah blah blah, gives him this thing because it's rare and stuff, and the exact reason why he suddenly decided to hunt down Picard and talk to him seems to be related to the genetic puzzle thingy, but he doesn't really tell Picard what's going on. Then he leaves and gets attacked by an Iridian ship. Oh yeah, this guy. And this is the object he gave to Picard, which are apparently extremely rare and extremely old. He gets attacked by an Iridian ship and dies, and the Enterprise is unable to figure out what happened to the or figure out why the Iridians were attacking him because the Iridian ship explodes. So, start hopping around, going to various planets, trying to figure out what Professor Galen was up to. Now, like I said before, this is something where the specific logic behind why they're going to places is related to the genetic puzzle dingus that I wouldn't have a party solving because it's history, as I said earlier. It's not a new thing. It's an old thing, and revisiting an old thing, some players might like it, some players might not. Anyways, well, while they're doing this, they run into a Klingon who is somehow knows what's going on and is also trying to complete the genetic puzzle. Why? Well, presumably the good professor in his research. See, the professor didn't have the funding to have his own starship that could travel the quadrant, finding all of the information on all of the different planets, at least not quickly. So he was doing various methods to buy passage on larger vessels to help him get along. And presumably, this is the reason why 3 galactic powers know about it and show up to make Picard's life miserable. So, also, this kind of almost feels like rolling a random encounter table. Go to Indri 8. Find out that there's a Klingon there who obliterates the planet's biosphere. Yeah, that's a thing that happens in this episode and kind of gets glossed over and ignored, but this Klingon um, does something highly questionable and obliterates the entire biosphere of Indri 8 to make it so that he's the only person who has a DNA sample from the planet. Now, allegedly, it was an uninhabited planet that didn't have any humanoid life on it or, sentient species or anything like that, but still. Uh, all that means is that the specific weapon that he used didn't kill any people. This time it was fired. The fact that he has a weapon capable of killing the entire biosphere of a planet is alarming, to say the least. Anyways. Oh, also, as they later establish, he didn't really prevent people from getting a DNA sample from Injury 8. He just made it harder. Because what they later establish is that fossilized DNA actually can work too. It just needs to be, relatively intact fossils or something. Because that's actually how Crusher finishes the thing. It says she uses fossilized DNA. So Injury 8, if you look for fossilized DNA, you could actually make it work anyways. So the Klingon was highly aggressive, and his efforts actually didn't work. He gave people a reason to shoot him, and didn't have a didn't get what he wanted. Let's put it that way. Yeah, one of those Klingons who goes in the idiot category. Anyway, though, so next up, they go to a few more planets and run into Cardassians. Why? Well, like I said, there's several races that know about this project, and the Cardassians are one of them, apparently. Dun dun dun. Now, Oset is someone who does the whole like sneaky backstabber routine, and does, in fact, disable Nudak's ship to the extent that at the end of the episode, Nudak's ship is still disabled in orbit of whatever planet it was in orbit of when Oset fired on it. The Enterprise D, not so much. They're like, yes, the Cardassians are betraying us. I expected as much. Why the Klingons would not anticipate such a thing, I have no idea, but whatever. Then again, like I mentioned before, Nudak is an idiot. Um. Anyways. Oh yeah. Also, Osette actually has a small group of ships. There's like 2 Gaylors that she's got under her command. Why? I don't know, but they do. Now, this is one of those episodes where the ludicrous chase scene precludes you from having a proper villain. Like I mentioned before, New Doc does give you a reason to see him as a villain. Very much so. But he kind of, sort of, is an incompetent villain. Osset, highly competent. Also kind of a villain. But we haven't gotten to the final plot twist yet. Dun dun dun. After this meeting with Osset, they try to figure out where the next place to go to is. They tell Osset that they're going to Ramazad because, oh, that is the correct place. Then they, what's the best way to put this? They reveal that the genetic, or the stellar drift over the last however many uh, thousand years actually meant that really, it doesn't have an article for the genetic puzzle. Anyway, stellar drift meant that Ramazad was actually in the wrong location, and that the correct location was actually Villamore, which was almost completely lifeless. Because, see, Villamore used to have oceans, but the oceans dried up somehow, so that now most of the planet's surface is uninhabitable, and blah, 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 blah. Very little life here. There's supposedly one patch of lichen left on the entire planet that hasn't died yet. One. Only one. And that is where Osset and the crew of the Enterprise beam down when they get to the planet. At which point they are met by these guys. Yeah, yeah, the sneaky cloaked Romulans that had been apparently following uh, Professor Galen since before he even talked to Picard about this. This group of Romulans had been staying cloaked and shadowing him in order to spy on all of his communication so that they could get the information about the puzzle. Oh boy. Uh, yeah. One thing that's interesting here, though, is that the Romulan guy is actually helpful. Yeah, he's like the final plot twist in the episode before they get to the big reveal. But he's actually there more as a foil to Gul Oset than to antagonize Picard, because at this point Oset is threatening to destroy the last uh, piece of life on the planet so that no one can solve the puzzle, and then, like I mentioned before, fossilized DNA actually works. So blowing up Indri 8 was a complete waste of time. And like I said, the Klingon was an idiot. Yeah, Picard's not going to give the Klingon to the Romulan captain because, quite frankly, the Romulan captain didn't want him. And two, Klingons are at least nominally allies of the Federation at this point, even if they're idiots who deserve to be shot. So, what kind of puzzle would you have to replace the genetic code thingy? Interesting question. Archaeology related to a uh, past race that, whatever, at some point in history. Star Trek uses that thing a lot. It's like, hey, there's a species that people have heard about because they've found relics from them on dozens of planets, and we don't actually know who they were. It's a recurring trope in multiple episodes, starting in TOS, of the whole like, oh, hey, here's an ancient race whose identity we don't know, and blah, 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 blah. Having that as what people are zipping around the galaxy trying to find information for would actually be a good replacement for the genetic puzzle thingy. Especially if you have it that the reason why people are wanting to find this so urgently is that they think that this race has some cool technological secret that would be valuable to the galactic powers. Heck, just like I mentioned before about the fact that this is seemingly written using a random encounter table. It's like, hey, it's a Klingon captain who blew up the biosphere of this planet. Here's a Cardassian who, while she's initially helpful and talkative, decides to stab us in the back as soon as she thinks she's got what she wanted from us. And then you have Romulans who are secretly sneaking around and so on. It's very random and not entirely realistically. It is actually thought out. It's just it feels random due to the way it's presented, because they didn't want to make it obvious that they were choosing drastically different races for this, because Cardassians and Romulans have almost nothing in common except the fact that they're um sneaky. The fact that the two races like sneaking around is really the main thing they have in common. Biologically, they're far more different than they are culturally. And it's the biological differences that are important for this episode. Having humans and Klingons in the mix makes it even more interesting in that regard. And also, the fact that the Romulans don't show up until the ending is actually kind of hilarious to me, because the fact that it really is one of those, like, aha, and Wait, what? Who are you? No. So sort of things. And another thing I mean, the Romulans in this one are actually nice. They don't actually give this guy's name. The customizable card game calls him Galathon, but he's actually rather polite and helpful. He actually beams down to the planet to keep Gull Osset from um, trying to steal the lichen that's the only remaining life on the planet. It's like his solution to the puzzle is to share. Because he's the guy who's been secretly stealing copies of everyone's research notes by being cloaked and listening to every ship to anything communications that has been going around for the last month. Yeah, yeah. Galathon's plot and plan, he'd been following Galen for weeks, collecting information. Very politely collecting information, mind you. If Picard hadn't intervened, he might have actually done something about the Iridian because he didn't want Galen to get killed by the Iridians. I don't know. That's an interesting question. Would he have done that? Let me know in the comments what you think Galathon would have done if he thought that the Iridians were going to kill Galen. But anyways, yeah. This is an archaeology themed episode, and any kind of archaeological mystery can be worked into it to replace the genetic puzzle plot. Because let's face it, the progenitor thing is ancient history, and while it was a cool ancient history, it's still something that was, very much in this episode, and we don't need to do it again. We don't need to do it again. Also, how on earth they managed to create a holographic projection out of this? Oh, I don't know. Okay, so yeah, what this here is that this is the genetic puzzle in visual form. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 genetic sequences, I think. How you convert this information to a holographic projection, I have no idea. Ah, plot convenience. But yeah, that was the plot in the episode, is that this is somehow a coded message. Yay, I guess. Anyway, though, you guys have fun. See you later.